As the blood moon approaches, all eyes are on the sun. Solar storm threat, Earth at risk after coronal hole forms in the sun, world facing blackout. That's somewhat of a sensational headline. More than likely, we're not going to have a blackout, but that's just kind of how the Express rolls. But yes, we can also look at the human behavioral emotional response. We could see how people, in some cases, there may be more protests, more people having miscommunications, things of that nature. So it's a combination of solar and lunar influences, which I am bringing your attention to. So let's go over some information from this particular report from the Express. Okay, some of the basic facts. Forecasters at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration say that there is a 65% chance that a geomagnetic storm could take place on today, July 24th. If it does, Earth could experience a blackout of electricity, GPS, or mobile phone signals. Space Weather says the gaseous material is flowing from a large hole in the sun's atmosphere. Now, here's spaceweather.com talking about the solar wind has arrived, but nothing major at the moment. And at spaceweather.gov, we could see that earlier in the day on the planetary K index, there was some activity. You see, the thing that people forget, it's about the strength of our own magnetic field. So as long as we have a strong magnetic field, we're okay around the planet to protect us. It's when that weakens that the particles start getting through that could be harmful to our grid. It could cause some wild fluctuations of human behavior. And there's also theories about evolutionary leaps on our planet and this dovetailing or going along or being influenced by the solar cycles. And I think there's something to that. There's more to just simply being concerned about our grid when looking at the sun. Okay, this also reports about northern lights being seen in some states here in the U.S. Depending on where you are. It's usually the northern states. I rarely get a chance to see the aurora borealis. As the magnetic sphere gets bombarded by solar winds, stunning blue lights can appear over the upper reaches of the northern hemisphere and the lower parts of the southern hemisphere. So as the future, right, as we go into the future, we start seeing more shifting, perhaps the planet's position. People could be seeing the aurora borealis in perhaps some parts of the planet where they didn't see it before. That's also going to be a sign some people have warned, like Matthew Stein, that appeared on my show about preparedness. Then we start seeing aurora borealis multiple nights, especially in certain areas where we don't see them. That's a sign of some major activity that could be threatening to our grid, nuclear power plants, things of that nature. So the solar wind comes out from this coronal hole. We could be having geomagnetic storms even if the sun is not active, like it normally is with sunspots. For the most part, the Earth's magnetic field protects humans from the barrage of radiation, but solar storms can affect satellite-based technology. Solar winds can heat the Earth's outer atmosphere, causing it to expand. This can affect satellites in orbit, potentially leading to a lack of GPS navigation, mobile phones, and more. As I said in the last video on the blood moon, these are also times for meditation. Going within, not letting our manipulations, our emotions be manipulated by others. Trying to, of course, pull ourselves out from any situations where we may be manipulating others or being emotional with others. That's why it's also recommended that we spend time alone in some cases. Get closer to nature. It's also one of the reasons why I live this way of life, most of the time, in nature and not in a major city. And it's because of these energies. You know, the earth changes that people talk about. It's also people changes. And the shifts in consciousness aren't always friendly. There definitely are shifts in consciousness, folks. And I think that some of these situations where people are acting out in the public, and sometimes, you know, the way the president behaves, whether he knows it or not, I think all that's deliberate, what he's doing. But just in general, take a look at somebody that may be in a position of authority during certain moments in which they're freaking out or they're doing certain things to certain individuals. We could see these world events taking place. Iran is on the table, is in the discussion. There's a lot of anger around that. And I think these are things that we could learn from. Let's take a look at some of these other headlines Solar storm threat, Earth at risk. We just covered that. Northern U.S. states might get a glimpse of the aurora borealis. And there's information from last year, right? So that is what we're looking at. I don't know if I got a chance to get into this. This is from Newsweek. I'll read this and then let you go. Hot gases are surging from a hole in the sun's atmosphere, sending powerful solar winds full of charged particles through space and towards our planet. These winds may build to a minor geomagnetic storm between 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday. So I'm looking at the clock now on my screen, and it's about noon. It'd be about 2 o'clock. Wow. I'm recording this at the exact moment that it is reaching this time. And it's going to be uploaded to you. So I'm going to take the rest of the night off from videos, relax a little bit, try not to watch. One of the things I try not to do as we reach these periods in which we could be more intuitive. I want to be in a state of listening, observing my own thoughts, hearing from intellectual people online, staying away from the madness, right? We have this additional energy that comes from the geomagnetic storm, and we can stimulate it spiritually and intellectually, or we can waste it with the civil unrest energy. And I've been speaking about this. I think I'm the only person that speaks about this in the alternative media. Watch your emotions. Don't let people try to, bait us in some of these different directions, or let certain videos and themes and memes pull us into these thought-form waves. A lot of people could be responding to a lot of things, right? And right now, a lot of people are going through a lot, and I'm going through a lot. That's why I spend a lot of time alone. I don't spend a lot of time on emails and social media and back and forth. I spend a lot of time alone because that's necessary for my mental health. Not a lot of people understand that. But I understand that it's not my role to explain it. By this time now, people should understand some of the stresses that we're going through, especially those of us that are involved in the alternative media, especially if we're independent within the alternative media. There's a lot of stress that goes with that. But at least learning about these things helps me. Learning about full moons, learn about the solar influence, because we can learn. There's times where we need to just kind of take some time off. You know what I mean? Relax. There are times to spend, maybe alone in nature. And then there's times where we may want to be in an urban city. There's times where I really want to travel. Sometimes, though, I have to sit myself down and it's like, Alex, do you really want to, spend what few resources, $100 you have just traveling, just not to be here? Or, maybe that energy that we think should be used for traveling could be better used for other things. Sometimes it's just a matter of just using that energy in a mindful way, right? But that period in which people are responding to the energy by traveling, migrating, that's a pattern a lot of people don't realize. Periods in which there's more activity. Here we are, midsummer. Energies like this, right? People may not be online, tapping into whatever's going on with the collective consciousness in that manner. The civil unrest, what the president's saying, they may be simply in migration mode. And this type of stuff adds to that, that sense of time to grab and go do something. And a lot of it has to do with the magnetic fields that surround the planet. That's what the birds use and the fish for migrating. So there's actually going to be patterns where sometimes animals do wash up, fish, birds. And there's a number of people that are noting when we go through these fluxes, certain genetic, it's almost like it's genetic evolution or changing. But with the planet, it's geomagnetic. The geomagnetic changes. The geomagnetic changes of the magnetic field lines in periods in which we see that magnetic flux, in some cases, are correlated to periods with massive amounts, thousands of fish in certain areas. That's not to discount other things that could be manipulating the Earth's magnetic field lines. But these lines are necessary for navigation. Now think about how we could be affected as human beings. The idea of being affected by these magnetic field lines. And the reality is we do. Why? Because we have magnetite as well within our brains. Microscopic magnetic particles known as magnetite, discovered in the human brain decades ago. And yet this is still not taught in school. And so when that magnetic particle known as magnetite is activated in the human brain, God knows how we're really affected on a deep level. All these different ways. right? People talk about all these different things regarding science, and yet some of the most basic scientific discoveries, some of the most simplest, have been overlooked, and yet they have so much significance in our life. So the solar influence over human affairs combined with the lunar influence over human affairs makes the coming days and weeks very, very interesting. Let's see what else this article has to say. So this is where we are right now on the 24th, right around 2 o'clock Eastern Time, in which I'm about to upload this. But see, Newsweek isn't bringing you the same type of sensational tone that you get from the Daily Mail, so use discretion with all information regarding these things. Use discretion, but the Daily Mail has a habit of sensationalizing. Don't let it discredit, right? Some of the more mainline scientific perspective is, don't worry, Earth's magnetic field will stop most of the charged particles from reaching our planet. The low-level geomagnetic storm may also cause weak power grid fluctuations, but it's unlikely to result in widespread blackouts. More active space weather can create. But the reality is we're heading towards that intense space weather in the future, even during a solar minimum. Okay, one of the reasons why is because when you have a solar minimum and there's less activity, the field around the planet is weaker. And in the last video, one of the ones in which I did on the solar minimum and the geopolitical risk to come later on, I left a link to the article that I wrote that was published by Nexus on my 29th birthday in the year 2009, February 25th, 2009. I wrote Solar Maximum and the Earth's Weakening Magnetic Field. What I understand more now is that during a solar minimum, and scientists are concerned about this, that field that protects our